Welcome to the Elle Duncan Show, presented by AT&T. Any of you out there who are longtime viewers, watchers, listeners, thank you. You know that we always like to start the show with shenanigans, a dad joke, Gary being inappropriate. We're just like really bummed out, if I'm being totally honest. Andraya Carter, Chiney Ogwumike, as you know, we like to do these shows, especially during the tournament. And thank you, ladies, for being here. But we watched last night JuJu go down in the first quarter of USC's game with Mississippi State. And it's not hyperbolic to say, like, everyone in the studio was silent. The Galen Center was silent. We don't know exactly at the time of taping, the extent of the injury. But it was just brutal to see those images.
Yeah, it was awful to watch anyone in pain. Of course, it's awful to see, but to watch a star like JuJu, who moves so effortlessly, everything she does on the court looks effortless. She looks invincible out there. She's so talented, skilled, athletic, tough, physical. Like, she just embodies what it means to be a hooper. And you watch her go down, and it's not dramatic when you say it's devastating.
Yes.
It felt deflating, and it felt devastating.
And watching her was heartbreaking because she's someone that is always a blank face. She goes out there, gives you 30 and does not emote. But to see her on the floor that way, it was hard. Someone who, me, who's based in Los Angeles, who has been to multiple games, what she has done, what she has built, what she has revived at USC is unparalleled.
Yeah.
A place of storied basketball history and success with legends. She was on and is on that trajectory, considering what this situation is. So we're sending her our absolute best.
Yes.
And honestly, it's also kind of nice to see how difficult those moments are, to see her teammates rally around her. There were times where, we talked about Coach Gottlieb in the timeout right after. They all took a collective breath.
Yes.
And they said, hey, guys, we still have a job to do. Mm-hmm. We care about JuJu. She mentioned the word family.
Yeah.
We're a family, and that's what you do with family. You have their back. And they had a tremendous first half, and we're trending towards the second as well.
Yeah, and it's incredible. There are a lot of coaches that might tear them apart, and they don't know how to hold themselves together, and then the team doesn't know how to hold themselves together, and instead you see them pull together and give a lot of credit, one to coach, two to the team, and also to Kiki Iriafen, because she is so poised. She's such a leader. She's a grown woman. She's a pro, and she went out and really led the team. And I think her leadership and her experience and her maturity for an otherwise pretty young group at times, obviously Rhea Marshall, another great veteran on that team, but Kiki Iriafen, such a big key for them as they start to rally.
Yeah, and when I think about Kiki, I think of Little Sis. She's someone I've known for a long time, from Stanford to now USC. Yeah. And I even don't like calling her Little Sis because she's a grown woman that can handle her business. But you're absolutely right. One thing she learned from Stanford that she brought here is leadership, and how leadership comes in different ways. Yeah. And, playing alongside JuJu, sometimes you have to defer because you're playing alongside greatness, but it also was great to see her leadership step up in this moment with her play, but also her positivity.
Yeah, she's
a smiley.
positive.
And so when you think about these situations happening, they truly have been a family. That's what we saw.
I'm going to paraphrase what she said, but it stood out, Lindsay Gottlieb, at the halftime when she basically was like, who you are is not who you are in only great moments, right? It's also like who you are consistently in bad moments as well. And you're right, just the cultural impact. I remember when JuJu signed on signing day, she joined me on SportsCenter, and I just remember at the time everyone being like, what? USC? Why would you go there? Right? Like they were just like, They're not there yet. They're not close. They haven't been good since Lisa Leslie. And I, in a very roundabout way, asked her that, and she was like, I want to make an impact at home. Like, I'm from here. I want to strap this city on my back. I want to make basketball what it was here again. And I'm charged with doing that. We saw Lindsay last year at the Final Four, and we were like, we knew that you knew she'd be good and that you guys would get the program back to where it needed to be. But did you think it happened this quickly? And she was like, no. Yeah. She was honest. She was like, I didn't know that it would happen right away. So again, as of right now, we don't really know exactly the extent of the injury. I will make this parallel, though. Like, no matter what the result is on the same night that JuJu gets injured, we also saw Paige Beckers.
The same thing,
right? Yeah. We saw Paige Beckers, who has been devastated by injury, and on a program for the last 4 years that has been devastated by injury. And we saw her in her final game at Gamble, and her last opportunity to get that elusive national championship, tie a career high make history, join Maya Moore, do all of those things in her send-off. It just felt poetic.
And you remember what she said after the game? She said, hey, I am grateful and I am blessed for all the good times, for all the successes, for all the wins, but also for the injuries and all the in-between. And to me, that spoke volumes.
Absolutely. And so here's what we're going to do, because it feels like the tenor has certainly changed a bit of the tournament. It just has. Like, apart from your brackets being busted or whatever you think or whatever your outlook is for USC, but I do think it would be a disservice to the amazing performances, players, matchups, joy that we've seen through the first 2 rounds. So what we're going to do here, we're going to take a little break. We're going to do exactly what USC did. We're going to take a deep breath. And when we come back, we're going to bring you all of the joyful moments that we witnessed through the first couple of rounds, because that's how we honor what has been an amazing tournament and these incredible players that have showed up. All right, so we're going to do that and we'll be right back.
All right, it's time for our AT&T guarantee. I guarantee that Alabama's Sarah Ashley Barker spent no less than like 3 hours in an ice tub after one of the most classic games, not just tournament games, classic games we've ever seen. Bama, Maryland was so good and so lit. But I also guarantee that that's not going to be the last huge performance that we get. She put up a 40-piece, but after what we saw from Paige, now I know the competition gets better and better as the tournament goes on, but after what we saw from Paige against Sodak State, she put up 34. I think we might get another 40-piece, man. We even saw Kiki Iriafen step up and set a career high and hit a 30-piece after JuJu went down. She's going to need to play that way in order for them to continue to advance. So yeah, I guarantee that this is not the end of the fantastic games. And I also guarantee that everyone's feeling some kind of way about the news that JuJu did tear her ACL. And I think the next few days will be good to sort of compartmentalize and process that. The tenor of the tournament definitely changed. It did. Professionally, it changed. Man, we were circling that UConn USC potential Elite Eight matchup. Personally, on a personal level, just watching someone who's so amazing, that's worked so hard, to see it on such a public stage taken from her in that way is tough. But I guarantee there'll be some great performances, the rest of the way. And there's still plenty of storylines. And in the interest of making a ton of guarantees, I also guarantee that when it comes to JuJu, that comeback is going to be epic. And I hope that she recognizes that while nobody wanted a comeback to have to be a part of her story, she's built different. And so many thoughts to her and to her USC team, who are now going to have to figure out life without her for the immediate future. But stick around, man. Don't let a devastating loss tell you that the tournament in some way has been minimized or is still, there are still so many storylines. Notre Dame, trying to do this thing and get another championship or make a Final Four after how they ended the season. UConn and Paige Beckers potentially being able to end her career in a storybook ending and her final opportunity to win a national championship. UCLA returning to prominence, trying to make their first Final Four in program history. And of course, South Carolina trying to go for a repeat championship. Like, there are storylines aplenty, or even Texas trying to win a championship in their first year in the SEC. Like, there's so many great stories, some that we don't even know yet. And I guarantee that you will be entertained.
Let's get to some of the questions that we had coming in and see how you feel after the first 2 rounds. One of those was, of course, what the hell is wrong with Notre Dame? Do we feel better about Notre Dame?
180. Yes. I was actually saying, and I was telling Drea in a moment of, vulnerability and honesty, but I want to actually throw in there Sarah Ashley Barker about
Sarah Ashley Barker.
Yeah. I was telling Drea, I was like, dang, I was worried about Texas. Yep. I was worried about Notre Dame. They said, shh.
Yeah, they said, hey, pipe down.
Texas, they came out and put out 100 points in their opening round. Their offense has looked good. They've gotten post-production. And Notre Dame, Leah Tu King, when your role players are stars in their roles, 18 points, 15 rebounds. It's just been really cool to see how the time away has allowed some of these top teams with expectations, to address maybe some of those corrections that they needed.
And that's 100% what we've seen from this Notre Dame team. I mean, you talked about when we were there for game day, you said they look like the Irish and not the Fighting Irish, right? They are now back to being the Fighting Irish. And what fighting looks like for a Notre Dame team: execution and energy on the defensive end, which flows right into their offense, and then also some balance on the offensive end. When we talk about Sonia Citron being involved and having 20-point performances and taking a good amount of shots, this Notre Dame team, all of the questions that we had, they answered them in their time away, and they have figured them out. So also shout out to Niele Ivey, because that team, once you start going left and things start going wrong and there's a lot of outside noise, you could keep going in that direction, and they have 100% righted the ship.
And we've said two things about Notre Dame: that they have the best backcourt in the country, but then they've had some bumps in the road when it comes to them shooting their offensive performances, which look to be better. But then secondly, we have said that this is a team that is the best shooting team, like 3-point percentage wise. And sometimes when you're in that category, you settle. Like you settle for jumpers. What we have seen in the tournament, their guards are attacking, which is a tremendous sign.
It'll be so interesting to watch Notre Dame TCU. That is a game that happened earlier in the season. TCU took down Notre Dame. TCU has a lot of size on the inside. We still haven't talked about Haley Van Lith and how well she has played. I mean, we haven't talked about Poindexter from Kansas State and her knocking down.
Bring them up, sis. Empty the chamber.
There's so many players.
First ever Sweet 16
ever in program. And again, like a reminder for the folks that weren't watching or don't know, like this is a TCU program that literally had to hold open tryouts. I wouldn't go that far. You had to have had some experience, but they had to hold open tryouts because they couldn't even field a roster. And then they're in the Sweet 16 for the first time in program history.
You know what I think is really special about some of these teams that we're seeing put up these really impressive performances? So we talk about TCU, right? And it's Haley Van Lith, it's Sedona Prince, it's Madison Connor. But then who steps up for them really big? Agnes Eminopu. Puts up 20-plus points. Stanford grad.
Claiming.
She reps. And to me, when we talk about K-State, they were upsetting. They were the 5 seed, upsetting Kentucky. It was Poindexter who comes off, hits 8 threes because Kentucky wasn't necessarily guarding her the right way, and she took advantage of those moments. When I think about some of these other teams, UConn being one of them, we've talked about KK Arnold. Winning a championship sometimes is when someone unexpected shines. Because teams focus so much on the big three, or teams focus so much on the superstar, your other people are going to be left open, and those players have to make the play. We've seen that also so far.
I forgot who working on the NBA side, I forgot who said it. It might have been like Danny Green or something like that. But he was saying that you need your stars to be stars in big moments. You need your role players to play like stars in games, but you need your coaches to win a game. So like there's a unique formula of, you need a coaching, scheme where this play worked out and we got a great shot. You need your star player to show up over the course of multiple games, and then you need your role players to bail you out. Like that is March, figuring out like those storylines for those teams.
Wait, say Agnes's last name again for me.
Agnes Eminopu.
I like how you say that.
It's smooth.
You know the origin?
What?
Nigeria.
Here she goes.
Nigeria! We'll see you. Sweet 16 starts on Friday. No, you guys are coming back too. They ain't tell you. And you know what? I'm going to pay you free $99 to do this.
You know what? That's why we don't get your references.
Bye. See you next week.
Thank you so much for watching the Elle Duncan Show, presented by AT&T.